What if the only way to save your child was to become the monster yourself? In the heart of rural America lies a town forgotten by time and cursed by something far older. A grieving mother uncovers a horrifying truth. To break the cycle of death, she must embrace an ancient ritual, one soaked in blood and silence. As she descends deeper into secrets no one dares to speak, her sanity, soul, and humanity are pushed to the brink. This is not just a horror story. This is a test of love, sacrifice, and what we become when no one is watching. On the fifth night, the baby monitor hissed again. Marissa didn't remember falling asleep. She only realized she had dozed off when the creaking from the hallway reached her ears, followed by a faint static-like white noise whispering through old cassette tapes. She blinked at the baby monitor sitting on the nightstand. Its green LED light blinked erratically, as if something was shifting in and out of range. Beside her, Tyler was still snoring softly, his back turned toward her. The clock read 2:42 a.m. It was the third time this week. Marissa sat up slowly, her hand unconsciously resting on her belly. She was 6 months pregnant and already felt stretched thin. Emotionally, physically, they had moved into this house in the Appalachian foothills just 2 weeks ago, hoping to find peace before the baby came. Tyler had accepted a teaching position at the University of Kentucky, and the farmhouse, spacious, cheap, and full of character, seemed like the perfect fresh start. But ever since they'd moved in, nights had become difficult. The nursery had no baby yet, just the antique crib from Tyler's grandmother, a few dusty boxes of books, and the hand-sewn mobile Marissa had bought on Etsy featuring little plush stars and moons. But every night, the monitor hissed. Every night, it woke her. And every night, the sounds became less like static and more like something else. A whisper, a shuffle, a coo. At first, she blamed it on old wire or perhaps the neighbor's dog, which sometimes wandered too close to their property line. But the sounds were inside, too precise, too alive. Tonight, she forced herself out of bed, grabbing her robe from the edge of the dresser. The floorboards under her feet were cold and slightly warped. The old farmhouse sighed as if it knew she was awake, as if it approved. Marissa stepped into the hallway. Darkness swallowed everything except for a faint amber glow leaking from under the nursery door. Her breath caught. They never left that light on. She turned back toward the bedroom. "Tyler?" she whispered. No response. She reached for the doorknob and pushed gently. The door swung open with a reluctant creak. The mobile was turning, slowly, as if a breeze had just passed through. But the windows were shut. The room was still. The crib sat empty, but the baby monitor on the dresser was blinking violently, as though it was picking up a storm of motionless energy. Then she heard it, a giggle, soft, guttural, not joyful like a child's. It came from the corner behind the curtain. Marissa froze. Her mind scrambled for reason. Maybe a raccoon had gotten in somehow. Maybe the monitor had a feedback loop. But no part of her could explain a giggle like that. It happened again, louder this time, closer. She backed out of the room and shut the door quietly. Heart hammering, she stepped back into the hallway and felt it, a breath, hot, moist, against her neck. She turned sharply, but nothing was there, just the long hallway and the whispering of the old house around her. She didn't sleep the rest of the night. The next morning, Marissa sat at the kitchen table with a cup of tea growing cold between her hands. Tyler came in, yawning and scratching the back of his head. His hair was a mess of golden curls, and he looked like he hadn't slept well either. "You left the nursery light on?" he asked, opening the fridge. Marissa shook her head slowly. "I found it that way." He stopped mid-reach. "What do you mean?" "It was on when I woke up around 3, and..." She hesitated. The mobile was spinning. He closed the fridge without taking anything. "You think someone came in?" "No. I don't know. But I heard something, Tyler, I swear." He pulled out a chair and sat across from her, leaning forward. "Okay, let's not jump to anything. It's an old house, drafts, creaks, all that crap. You're tired, we both are. You're pregnant, your body's on high alert. She nodded but didn't feel reassured. What about the monitor? He sighed. I'll check the signal today. Maybe it's picking up something from the woods. A deer or... He trailed off. They both knew it wasn't deer. That afternoon, Marissa went into town. She needed to get away from the house, if only for a few hours. Shelby, the nearest town, was small, just a diner, a hardware store, and a church, with a collapsing steeple. She parked in front of the library. It was the only building with working air conditioning. Inside, the librarian, an elderly woman with tightly pinned gray hair, looked up from her desk. You new in town? She asked, her eyes flicking to Marissa's belly. Marissa smiled faintly. Yeah, we moved into the old Thibodeau place. The librarian stiffened. That house been empty for near 20 years. Marissa blinked. The owner said, they said what they had to sell it. A silence stretched between them. I've been hearing things, Marissa said before she could stop herself. In the nursery, at night. The woman's face went still. Her hands paused over her keyboard. Do you know anything about that house? Marissa asked, her voice quieter now. The librarian didn't answer. Instead, she stood, walked to one of the old filing cabinets near the back, and rummaged through the yellowing folders. She returned with a single manila envelope labeled Thibodeau Ukes Family 195620003. You didn't get this from me, she said. Inside were copies of newspaper clippings, faded photographs, and a death certificate. Marissa skimmed it. The last entry was from 2003. Local woman dies in apparent suicide, infant child missing. Authorities unable to locate the body of 3-week-old Sarah Thibodeau. Crib found empty. Investigation remains open. Her mouth went dry. There was a photo, too. Black and white. The mother, thin-faced and pale, holding a baby wrapped in a patterned quilt. Behind her was the same nursery wallpaper they had never bothered to change. Marissa's skin turned cold. She clutched her belly, suddenly aware of a chill settling into her spine. When she returned home, the mobile was still spinning, but the door had been locked. From the inside. The door should not have been locked. Marissa stood frozen outside the nursery, her fingers still wrapped around the doorknob that refused to turn. Her other hand instinctively shielded her belly, as though protecting the child inside from something that could seep through the walls. She stared at the brass knob for a moment longer before backing away. A sharp smell, like burnt fabric and baby powder, lingered near the crack at the base of the door. By the time Tyler came home, the odor was gone. So was the lock. I swear it wouldn't open, she told him, trembling as she led him upstairs. I didn't imagine it. But when he turned the knob, the nursery opened as easily as always. The mobile had stopped spinning. The baby monitor on the dresser was dead. It's LED dark. You need to rest, he said gently, wrapping an arm around her. Stress isn't good for either of you. But rest was the one thing Marissa couldn't find. That night she stayed up, lights on, waiting. The monitor remained silent. The house was quiet, almost too quiet, like it was holding its breath. At 3:08 a.m., she dozed off with the monitor in her lap. She woke up screaming. Tyler jolted upright. What is it? What happened? Her eyes were wide, her mouth open in terror, but no sound came out. She stared at the monitor in her hand. It was glowing green again. The screen flickered. Static. Then, movement. Just for a split second, she saw the crib from above, the crib and swaddled in something in it. A small bundle, swaddled in the same quilt as the baby in the black and white photo. Something moved under the blanket, twitched. Then a pale hand reached down into the crib. Not hers, not Tyler's. The fingers were too long, the nails blackened. And then the screen cut to black. The image lingered in her mind long after the monitor shut off. The hand, the bundle, that same whispering laughter just beneath the static. The next day, Marissa didn't mention it to Tyler. Instead, she drove back into town, past the withered fields and rusted mailboxes to find the librarian. But the library was closed. A paper sign taped to the glass door read, "Closed until further notice. Family emergency." She cursed under her breath, then drove to the church. The priest, Father Elkins, met her at the threshold with a cautious smile. "You're from the Thibodeau house," he said before she could speak. Her stomach dropped. "Yes, I need to ask you something." They sat in a pew near the back. The sanctuary smelled of old wood and beeswax. Stained glass painted strange colors across her lap. "You're not the first to ask," he said. "What do you mean?" He folded his hands over his belly at her house. "It's an old scar. People forget how deep it goes. Sarah Thibodeau, the baby, she was never found. But there were things before her, too." Marissa leaned forward. "Things?" "There's talk," he said slowly, "about a pattern. Cribs left empty. Baby laughter heard at night. The women, all pregnant, complaining of dreams. Whispers, something watching, and then silence." Her voice caught. "You're saying this has happened before?" He nodded once. "They say the land is cursed," he continued, "but not by God, by something older than even the settlers who built that farmhouse." Marissa felt cold seep into her spine. "What am I supposed to do?" The priest looked at her, his face stern. "Don't bring your child into that house." She left, shaking. At home, Tyler was in the garage tinkering with a broken water heater. Marissa climbed the stairs quietly, avoiding the nursery entirely. She lay on the bed and pulled the old envelope from the library out from under her pillow. The photo, the death notice. And at the very bottom, an old newspaper article, half torn and nearly illegible. She read what she could. Neighbors report hearing lullabies coming from the attic. Mrs. Thibodeau was seen walking the fields alone, singing to no one. House once belonged to Lucinda White, midwife and accused witch. Hanged 1874. That night, Marissa searched the attic for the first time. She hadn't dared to go up before. The pull chain had broken, and the whole ceiling hatch felt like it would fall apart at a touch. But now, she had a purpose, a reason. She brought a flashlight, a stepladder, and a growing dread that curled in her gut like a second heartbeat. It took 3 tries to unlatch the panel. When it finally gave, the wood groaned like an ancient joint being pulled from its socket. Dust poured down like ash. She climbed the steps slowly. The attic smelled of old cloth and rotting wood. Her light scanned boxes, broken furniture, peeling wallpaper where wasps had once nested. Then it caught something odd near the far corner, a wooden rocking chair, and in it, a small porcelain doll. The doll had no eye, just hollow sockets filled with dark resin. It wore a faded baby bonnet. A tag was stitched across its chest. Sarah. Marissa knelt in front of it, flashlight trembling. Behind the chair, against the wall, something was scratched into the wood. A sigil. Circular, marked with ancient, curling runes. Not English, not Latin, something older. She reached for her phone to take a photo. Then the rocking chair began to move. Back and forth. Back and forth. Marissa stumbled back, nearly falling through the hatch opening. As she caught herself on the edge, the flashlight fell from her hand, clattering into the darkness. The attic door slammed shut above her. She screamed. Tyler found her an hour later, curled up in bed, pale and shaking. She didn't mention the doll, or the sigil, or the chair. Only that she had felt something watching her from behind the walls. He sat beside her in silence, holding her hand. Neither of them noticed that the nursery light had turned on again. Neither of them saw the faint outline of a child handprint pressed against the inside of the nursery window from the second floor. The dreams began on the 3rd night after the attic. Not the usual scattered flashes of memory and fear. These were different, focused, intentional. Marissa found herself standing in the nursery, though it was no longer hers. The wallpaper had turned yellow with age, curling at the edges. The crib was gone. In its place, a stone altar stood in the center of the room, surrounded by scattered baby shoes, left and right, all too small to have ever taken a step. She tried to move, but her legs refused. Her arms hung limp at her sides. Then came the lullaby, soft, crooked, sung off key in a voice that trembled with age and malice. It didn't come from a mouth. It came from inside the walls, as if the house itself was humming. She turned, or thought she did. The dream distorted space like water, bending lines, elongating shadows. There was something, in the corner, a woman. No, not a woman. She wore a black veil that clung to her face like wet cloth. Beneath it, her eyes were missing. In their place were hollows, leaking dark tears that disappeared before hitting the floor, and in her arms, she cradled the doll from the attic. It began to cry. Marissa tried to scream. She woke gasping, her shirt soaked in sweat, hands clutching her stomach. The house was silent. The monitor glowed green. The next morning, Tyler left early for work, his lips brushing her forehead in a mechanical goodbye. He didn't ask about her sleep. He had learned not to. Marissa wandered the house like a ghost, tracing her fingers along the walls, trying to sense what lay behind them. The sigil in the attic haunted her. She had searched symbols online but found nothing that matched. The closest comparisons were fragments from witch trials, runes associated with fertility rituals, infant offerings, and old-world blood magic. She found herself staring at the nursery door again. It was open. Had she left it that way? Inside, the air felt cooler, heavier. She stepped over the threshold. The crib looked untouched. The rocking chair, not the one from the attic, but a newer one she and Tyler had bought at a vintage shop, stood still in the corner. But the mobile above the crib was turning, slowly, clockwise. No wind, no draft, just turning. She reached for it. As soon as her hand touched the mobile, it stopped, instantly, frozen mid-spin. She backed away. Her foot hit something soft. She looked down. Another doll. Porcelain, just like the one in the attic, only this one had eyes. Real ones. Glass, yes, but impossibly detailed. Pale green irises surrounded by capillaries, painted with unsettling precision. Its tiny dress was stained at the collar, something dark and crusted. Blood? No. She knelt, touched it. Sticky. Fresh. Marissa dropped the doll and ran. That afternoon, she drove back to the church. Father Elkins was not there. The woman who answered the door, young with tired eyes and a child on her hip, told Marissa that the priest had left town unexpectedly. Family business, she said. Didn't say when he'd be back. Marissa thanked her and returned to the car, trembling. She sat there, gripping the steering wheel, unsure of what to do next. The engine idled. Then she saw the boy, standing at the edge of the church parking lot, no more than 6 years old, in a gray wool coat too large for his frame. He stared at her, his eyes, wide, unblinking, were not a child's eyes. They were too still, too old. Then, without moving his lips, he mouthed words she couldn't hear but could feel. "She's waiting." Marissa blinked. He was gone. When she returned home, the mailbox was stuffed. Junk mail, catalogs, a single plain white envelope with no return address. Inside was a photo. Not printed, developed, like from an old darkroom. It showed the nursery, her nursery, taken from a high angle, like the monitor's camera, but slightly offset, as if someone had stood in the corner. In the photo, the crib was empty, but beside it stood the woman in the veil. Closer now, more defined. Her hands, pale and gnarled, stretched out over the crib rail. Her mouth, just visible beneath the veil, was smiling. On the back of the photo, a line of text in looping cursive. "Don't let her sing." Marissa dropped the photo and backed away. Her pulse thundered in her ears. At that moment, the mobile upstairs began to turn again. Slowly, clockwise, without a sound. And this time, she could hear the lullaby. Not in her head, not from a dream, but real, echoing down the stairwell like wind whispering through dead leaves. She ran to the nursery and threw open the door. Nothing moved. The mobile hung still. The crib was empty, but the doll was gone, and carved into the wall just above the headboard in long, jagged strokes. "Hush, little baby." Marissa didn't sleep that night. She lay in bed, eyes fixed on the ceiling, waiting for the lullaby, waiting for the crying, for the mobile to start spinning on its own again. But nothing came. Silence pressed against the walls like a weight. At 3:11 a.m. she sat up. At 3:12 she heard footsteps in the attic. One soft thump, then another, then dragging. She grabbed her phone, turned on the flashlight, and left the bedroom barefoot. Every step creaked along the hallway like the house was exhaling under her feet. She passed the nursery, now sealed shut with painter's tape in a desperate attempt to draw a boundary between her and whatever the hell was inside. But the tape had peeled. The door was ajar. Marissa tightened her jaw and continued up the stairs toward the attic. She hesitated at the last step. Whatever was up there, it was waiting. She pushed open the trapdoor. The attic was cold. Colder than it should have been, even for late autumn in New England. The porcelain doll was back in the center of the attic, sitting upright now, the exact same one she'd found before. The cracked eye, the faded dress. But it had something in its lap, a photograph. She knelt down, picked it up. It was a sonogram. Not hers. The date in the top corner read 1982. The name, Deborah Sanborn, Marissa's mother. Her breath caught. She stared at the gray blur, at the grainy image of a curled fetus, then noticed something strange. Behind the fetal shape, in the shadows of the sonogram, there was a second shape, a smaller one, a figure, with limbs and eyes. Marissa stumbled back and nearly fell down the attic ladder. She slammed the trapdoor shut and backed into the hallway, her chest heaving. Her fingers trembled so hard she dropped the photo twice before managing to stuff it into her robe pocket. What the hell was happening? She knew her mother had suffered complications during pregnancy. It was a known family history, part of the reason Marissa had been so terrified of childbirth. But twins? That had never been mentioned. And that thing in the sonogram? Was it real? A trick of the grain? Or something else entirely? She rushed downstairs, into the kitchen, flicking on every light she could reach. She needed answers. She called her Aunt Margaret, her mother's sister. Despite the hour, it rang 4 times before the line picked up. "Marissa?" A groggy voice mumbled. "It's 2 a.m. I need to ask you something," she said quickly. Did she ever lose a child before me, like during pregnancy?" Silence. Too long. Then, "Why are you asking this now?" "Please, I found something." A breath, then carefully. "Debbie had a twin pregnancy. One baby didn't make it. It was strange. The doctors called it a vanishing twin. It was common enough, they said. But Debbie, she didn't believe it vanished. She said she still felt it, heard it, even after the other baby. You were born. What happened? She got worse after you were born. Talked to shadows, said you had a sister that never left, that she was jealous, hungry." Marissa gripped the counter. "I thought she was just traumatized," Margaret whispered. "But before she died, she asked me to burn something." "What?" "Her old journals and a doll from your childhood. But when I went looking, they were gone. She said they'd gone back upstairs. I thought she meant the attic." Marissa's mouth went dry. There had never been a doll in her childhood memory, but there was a doll now, in the attic, with her mother's name attached. "Marissa," Margaret said softly, "is she back?" The line went dead. The next morning, Marissa called out of work and drove to the town archive. It was a small building near the courthouse, half turned into a museum. She gave the clerk the name, Deborah Sanborn, and requested all birth and hospital records from 1982. They were hesitant at first, but curiosity and Marissa's trembling hands got the better of them. The microfilm machine was ancient, hissing as it whirred through decades of files. Then it stopped. February 1982, twin birth, Sanborn. Deborah 1, entry, 2 names. Marissa Sanborn, survived, unnamed female twin, stillborn, no further detail, no cause of death, no autopsy. Just one note in faded handwriting, body not recovered. Internal absorption suspected. Marissa sat back, cold all over. The phrase echoed in her skull like a curse. Internal absorption. Her mother had carried 2, and something had never left. That evening, Tyler came home early. He found her sitting on the nursery floor, arms wrapped around her knees, staring at the crib. She didn't hear him walk in. "Risp," she flinched. "Jesus, are you okay?" She nodded, then shook her head. "Something's wrong with the house," she whispered. "And I think something followed me from the womb." Tyler stared at her, the blood draining from his face. "That's not funny." "I'm not joking." "I'm not joking. I think you need to see someone." Marissa stood, walked up to him, pressed the sonogram into his hand. He stared at it, frowning. "What is this?" "Look closer." He did, then squinted, then recoiled. Is this a joke?" "No." He dropped the photo like it burned him. That night, they fought. She didn't remember the words, only the door slamming, Tyler sleeping on the couch, and the lullaby starting again, this time louder, closer, more voices. At 3:13 a.m., the baby monitor turned itself on. It showed the nursery. Someone was in the crib. Not the baby, a figure. Small, slender, bald. Its limbs were too long, folded over itself like a spider. It sat perfectly still, staring at the camera. And then it smiled. Not with its mouth, but with its eyes. The thing in the crib didn't blink. Even through the grainy feed of the baby monitor, Marissa could see it staring back, as if it knew she was watching. She couldn't move, couldn't breathe. Downstairs, the clock struck 3:14 a.m. The figure in the crib twitched, just slightly, like a puppet shifting between strings. Marissa threw the monitor down. It shattered against the hardwood floor. She grabbed a kitchen knife without thinking and sprinted upstairs, barefoot, heart hammering like it wanted out of her chest. The hallway was cold, too cold. The kind of cold that crept into your bones and whispered, "Run." The nursery door stood open, spinning, not swinging. It moved in lazy circles, as if some invisible hand were playing with it. Marissa inched forward, her breath caught in her throat. Every instinct told her not to go in, to run, to leave the house, to grab Tyler, to call the police or a priest or both. But her baby was inside, her son. She pushed the door open with the knife. The mobile above the crib spun violently, faster than any breeze could have moved it, but the crib, empty. Marissa let out a cry and ran forward, yanking off the blankets, checking beneath, inside, everywhere. Nothing. Then a sound. From the closet. A wet, dragging sound. Marissa gripped the knife tighter. She flung open the closet door. Inside was the baby, her baby, sleeping peacefully in the laundry basket, untouched, unbothered. She scooped him up, tears streaming down her cheeks. But when she turned to leave the room, the door slammed shut, on its own. The next morning, Tyler accused her of sleepwalking. "I found the knife on the floor," he said. "You don't remember grabbing it?" "I remember everything," Marissa hissed. "There was something in that crib, Tyler. It wasn't a dream." He pinched the bridge of his nose. "This house is doing something to you." "No," she said. "It's not the house. It's the past." And then she told him everything. The sonogram, the name, the vanishing twin. His face twisted into disbelief. And something else. Fear. I need you to believe me, she said. I want to, he said. But this? I don't know. Riss? Then he hesitated. There's something I haven't told you, he added. About the basement. She frowned. What? Tyler rubbed his neck. Yesterday, I went down to replace the old insulation, and I found something behind the boiler. What do you mean? A trapdoor. It under the paneling. It was nailed shut. Marissa stared at him. You opened it? He nodded. There was a ladder. It went down further than it should have. Like, much further. The walls weren't concrete, they were dirt, like some kind of root cellar. Did you go in? Only a few steps. It felt wrong. Cold. I heard something. Breathing. Marissa went cold. They went down together that afternoon. The door was behind the boiler, just like he said, painted the same color as the wall. When Tyler pried it open with a crowbar, the scent hit them both at once. Damp soil and something fouler underneath, like rotting leaves or old blood. Marissa gripped a flashlight. They descended. The space was impossibly large for what should have been a foundation. Packed earth formed the walls. Root tendrils jutted from the ceiling like dead veins. Carved into one of the dirt walls was a symbol, a circle with 3 jagged lines running vertically through it, like claw marks. Is this a ritual site? Marissa whispered. Tyler didn't answer. He was staring at something buried in the corner. A pile of dolls. Cracked porcelain, limbless cloth, button eyes. Dozens of them, stacked like corpses, and in the center, a wooden cradle. Inside the cradle lay a withered bundle of cloth. Tyler stepped back. Let's get out of here, he said, but Marissa had already approached the cradle. Something pulled her forward, a presence, a memory not her own. She reached for the bundle. A voice whispered behind her ear, "Sister." She screamed, spun around. Nothing there. Tyler yanked her out of the cellar. They slammed the trapdoor shut and nailed it closed again. Neither of them spoke for a long time. Finally, Marissa asked, "Do you believe me now?" Tyler just nodded. That night, the baby wouldn't stop crying. They fed him, changed him, rocked him. Nothing worked. And when Marissa held him, she felt it. Something behind his eyes, as if someone else was watching her through him. At 3:13 a.m., the crying stopped. She rushed to the nursery. The crib was empty again, but this time there were footprints, small ones, running from the crib toward the closet. And inside the closet, the porcelain doll sitting upright, with a note in its lap, in childlike handwriting. "I miss you, sister. Why did you leave me behind?" It wasn't a doll anymore. It moved. Marissa stood frozen, the nursery dim and vibrating with a quiet too deliberate to be called silence. The thing in the closet? A week ago it might have passed for a forgotten antique toy. Now it tilted its head at her, slow and deliberate, as if hearing her breath and tasting her fear. Its eyes were no longer buttons, they were wet, alive, watching. Tyler slammed the closet door shut behind her. She hadn't even realized he'd followed her into the room. His hands were trembling. "We have to burn it," he whispered. "Right now." But Marissa shook her head. "It's not the doll." "What are you talking about?" "You saw it." "No," she said, her voice hoarse. "It's what's in it." She stepped back, heart pounding. Something's using it. Like a body. Tyler grabbed her wrist. "Then let's get rid of the body." They carried the doll out to the backyard, placed it in a rusted metal bin, and poured lighter fluid over its worn cloth dress and split porcelain. Marissa didn't blink as she lit the match. The doll burned with a shriek. Not a crackle, not the hiss of burning cloth, a scream. Thin, high-pitched, and unmistakably human. They both backed away. The flames flared green, and then died abruptly. Far too soon, far too fast. All that was left was ash, curling in unnatural spirals, like smoke refusing to let go of the shape it had once inhabited. That night, neither of them slept. Tyler paced downstairs. Marissa stayed in the nursery, watching the crib. She didn't trust it to stay empty anymore. At 2:48 a.m., the baby stirred. By 3:13, he was no longer in the crib. But this time, he wasn't missing. He was standing on the far side of the room, on his own, unsteady but upright, staring at her. Marissa rushed forward, expecting him to fall, but he didn't. He just kept staring, eyes too calm, too focused for a child his age. "Caleb," she whispered. The baby tilted his head, not unlike the doll had, and then he spoke. Not a babble, not a coo. Words, clear, cold, familiar. "You tried to leave me." Marissa staggered back. The baby blinked, and it was like a switch had flipped. He collapsed onto his knees, began crying like any normal infant, fists clenched, face flushed. Tyler burst into the room seconds later, panting. "I heard. What the hell was that?" She didn't answer. The next morning, Marissa made a decision. She needed to find the truth. About the twin, about the ritual, about the house. So she went back to the hospital. The records office was less helpful than she'd hoped, until she showed them the name of the attending nurse on her sonogram photo, a woman named Adele Morrow. "She's retired now," the clerk told her, "but still lives nearby." Marissa drove to the address. The house was old but neat. Wind chimes clinked on the porch. An orange cat watched her through the front window. Mrs. Morrow answered the door with a wary look. "I'm not doing interviews anymore," she said flatly. "I'm not press," Marissa replied. You were there when I was pregnant. You performed my ultrasound. I think something was wrong with my pregnancy." That gave the woman pause. Marissa showed her the photo. The nurse stared at it for a long time. Then she opened the door. Inside, the house smelled of lavender and dust. Adele brought tea. Neither of them drank it. "You're not wrong," the nurse finally said. "There was something different about that scan. Something none of us could explain." She pulled out a manila folder, yellowed with time. "I kept a copy. I don't know why." Inside was a second photo, similar to Marissa's, except this one showed the second fetus clearly. But there was a difference. It was smiling. Even now, decades later, that twisted little grin was burned into the film. "It never moved," Adele whispered, "but it always faced the monitor, always looked like it was aware." "I told the OB something wasn't right. He told me to delete it." Marissa shivered. "I didn't know you were the one who carried it," the nurse continued. "But I remember what happened after. A stillbirth on record, but no remains ever filed. The twin just disappeared." Marissa asked what hospital policy was on vanishing fetal matter. Adele just looked at her deeply and said, "It doesn't vanish. Not unless something else takes it." Marissa laughed, shaking. She clutched the photo in her coat pocket the whole way home. That evening, she showed Tyler the second ultrasound. He turned pale. "That's not a baby," he muttered. "That's Jesus, Marissa," that thing's grinning. She nodded, then pulled something else from the envelope, a handwritten report from Adele, and on the final page, partially redacted, was a phrase. "Ritual candidate identified. Subject 32, Sycamore. No burial required. Return to origin point upon activation." "What the hell does that mean?" Tyler asked. Marissa didn't know, but she had a hunch, and it started with the address listed in the footer. The same street they now lived on. Same number, different name. Sycamore was renamed Ashwood Lane 15 years ago because of a fire. A fire that destroyed the original Fletcher residence. And one name stood out on the list of previous occupants. Daniel Rose, the man who vanished. The same one she'd seen mentioned in the hospital logs. The same one Simon Fletcher, her cousin, had warned her about years ago. Except now, it wasn't just a warning. It was a pattern. And it was happening again. That night, Marissa couldn't sleep. The shadows in the house seemed thicker now. clinging to corners like they were waiting. Tyler stayed on the couch, the second ultrasound clutched in his hand, muttering something under his breath. She couldn't make out the words, but it was rhythmic, almost like a chant. She left him there and went upstairs to check on Caleb. The crib was empty. Not again. Her stomach flipped, cold dread blooming in her chest. She scanned the room and found him, standing near the closet again, one chubby hand resting on the door frame. "Caleb," she whispered, stepping closer. The child turned slowly. His eyes weren't right, not clouded or red, but too focused, like they were lenses, not human organs. Reflective, watching. "You came back," he said, voice still not his. "You found the picture." Marissa froze. The air around her felt heavier. The mobile above the crib began to spin, though no wind stirred. She crouched slowly, staying at eye level with the child, or whatever was using him. "What do you want?" Caleb blinked. "You already know." "No, I want you to tell me." He smiled just slightly. "You carried me, you fed me, you burned the doll, but that was only the door. Now you opened it." His mouth twitched. "Would you like to see me for real?" Marissa felt her throat tighten. She didn't respond. Behind her, the closet door creaked open. She hadn't touched it. She turned. Inside was nothing but the back wall. Except now, it wasn't a wall anymore. It was stone. Old, cracked, and slick with moss, like the inside of a well or a tunnel. The air spilling from it smelled of mildew and iron. A shape moved deep within. Something wet scraped across the stone. A hand, or what might once have been a hand, pressed against the inside. It had too many fingers. Marissa grabbed Caleb and backed away. But the child didn't cry. He laughed. "I'm almost out," he said. "Just a little more." She ran. The next morning, Tyler was gone. No note, no sign of a struggle. Just his shoes by the door, his phone still charging on the kitchen counter, and a single smudge of ash leading from the hallway to the front window. She called his name until her voice cracked. Nothing answered, not even the baby. Caleb had stopped responding to sound altogether. He just sat now, in the center of the nursery floor, eyes wide, unblinking, like he was waiting for a signal. That afternoon, the mail arrived. One envelope, no return address. Inside, a single sheet of paper, typed in all caps. "Do not return to the closet. Do not stay in the house past 3:13. Do not speak to the boy when he is not your son. He is watching through the stone. Do not move the body." Beneath the message, a map. A crude sketch of the neighborhood, but with sycamore written over the street name, and a red X over their house. Another over the burned-down lot 3 houses down. The place where Daniel Rose said lived. Marissa stared at the paper until her eyes blurred. Then she made a decision. If this was a ritual, then maybe it followed rules, and if it followed rules, maybe it could be broken. She went to the lot. The place was nothing now but charred beams and moss. A for sale sign half swallowed by ivy. But beneath the rubble, Marissa found something she hadn't expected. A storm cellar door, half rusted, nearly invisible under layers of dead leaves and soot. She pried it open. A stairway descended into darkness. The air below was cold, sharp with mildew. She took her phone, turned on the flashlight, and climbed down. What she found wasn't a cellar. It was a chamber. Stone walls etched with unfamiliar symbols. Chalk lines forming concentric circles. Black candles long since melted to stubs. In the center, an iron cradle. Inside the cradle, something moved, wrapped in yellowed cloth. She stepped closer. The bundle twitched, then let out a sound, not a baby's cry, but something in between. A gargled, choking sound, half air, half fluid. The thing inside the cloth writhed. She stepped back, bile rising in her throat. Behind her, the stone wall shifted, like something had pressed against it from the other side. A voice whispered, "Trade must be completed." Marissa turned. Nothing there. but the cloth bundle had stopped moving. She leaned over the cradle. Inside was not a baby. It was something shaped like one, but too long. Its limbs jointed wrong. The skin was translucent, showing black veins pulsing just beneath the surface. Its eyes were shut, but its mouth was open, smiling, the same grin as the ultrasound. She left the chamber in a daze. The wind had picked up outside. Ash blew through the trees, settling like snow. When she returned home, the lights were flickering, and Caleb was standing in the living room, holding something. A shard of mirror. Blood dripped from his hand. Marissa screamed and rushed toward him, but he didn't react, just stared up at her, eyes dead. "I saw myself," he whispered. "In the other place. I saw what I look like." He tilted the glass toward her. He didn't show his reflection. It showed hers, but older, faded, as if aged 20 years in a blink. In the mirror, her eyes were gone, just hollow sockets. Her voice trembled. "What do you want from me?" Caleb dropped the mirror. It shattered on the floor. "You already gave it," he said, "but now you must seal it." And then he pointed at the stairs, at the closet. Marissa climbed with trembling legs. The closet door was open. Inside, the stone had spread. It now covered half the wall and part of the floor. Something writhed inside. A figure stepped forward. Not a ghost, not a hallucination. Tyler, or something wearing him. His face was blank. His chest was carved with symbols, glowing faintly red. He reached out a hand toward her. "Join us," he said. His mouth didn't move. The voice came from beneath the floorboards. And behind him, the stone opened wider, revealing something coming through. Something that had waited long enough, and this time, it wasn't smiling. It was hungry. The silence that followed was not empty. It was listening. Marissa stood at the threshold of the nursery, her breath catching as the stone inside the closet glistened like slick, breathing skin. The figure that had looked like Tyler was no longer visible, but his presence lingered in the air like static, like the electric charge before a lightning strike. Caleb stood beside her, holding her hand, small fingers cold and rigid. He didn't speak. He hadn't said a word since the mirror, but she could feel the pull of something ancient in the pit of her chest, as if her heart were no longer hers to command. The closet was no longer a closet. It was a gate. That's what it had always been. The first ultrasound, the burn mark on the floor, the impossible image of a smiling child before he had even existed. The whispers, the ash, the time, all of it. Fragments of something much larger, something patient, something bound by ritual and waiting for its seals to break, one by one. She stepped forward and the stone pulsed with a faint red light, not a glow. A heartbeat. Caleb followed her into the room without prompting. The mobile spun above them, slowly at first, then faster, as if the air itself had begun to swirl. She stared at the patterns on the wall. New symbols had etched themselves into the paint, dark runes forming in black mold across the edges of the room. She had seen these before, in the cellar beneath Daniel Rose's property, in the margins of the mailed warning, in the burnt image of Tyler's chest. They weren't decorations, they were instructions. The ritual was still incomplete, and she knew, somehow, with the certainty of someone awakening from a long shared dream, that the next part required her. Downstairs, the power flickered again. Distantly, a siren wailed and died in the street outside, but there were no cars, no lights, no people. The neighborhood had fallen into a kind of artificial sleep, its soundscape hollowed out like a stage set with no audience. The door to the closet creaked open wider. No hand touched it, it simply obeyed. Inside, the stone wall had opened fully now, revealing a dark corridor, not carved, not built, but grown, as if the structure had erupted from the bones of the house. On either side of the passage were carvings, reliefs of twisted human forms, some kneeling, some crawling, some disintegrating into abstract shapes. The mouths were always open, the eyes were always gone. She hesitated at the threshold. Caleb stepped in first. The moment he passed through, the light in the nursery died. She followed. The tunnel stretched longer than the house could ever contain. The deeper she walked, the more distorted her sense of time became. There were no sounds of footsteps, no echo, just the constant sensation of being observed. Once, she turned sharply, sure someone was behind her. There wasn't. But a second set of footprints had begun forming in the soft dirt just behind hers. Not beside, not ahead, directly behind. She didn't look again. The tunnel opened into a chamber. It was circular, roughly 20 feet across, with high ceilings lost in shadow. The walls were covered in more symbols, some drawn, some burned, some stitched into the very stone itself. At the center of the chamber stood an altar made of bone and black glass. Resting on the altar was a third altar stone. This one was different. It didn't show a baby. It showed her, curled up in fetal position, mouth open in a silent scream, and her womb was empty. Something moved in the far corner. She turned sharply, just in time to see a shape vanish behind one of the stone columns. A figure tall and thin, with joints that bent the wrong way, then another and another. They didn't move like humans. They moved like shadows that had forgotten how to stay flat. Caleb stepped to the altar and touched the image. The screen hissed and flickered, then dissolved into ash. "It's ready," he said. His voice was calm again, almost bored. "What is?" "The crossing." From the far end of the chamber, a wall began to split. The crack that formed was slow and deliberate, opening like a mouth behind stretched skin. Inside was a corridor of red light and shifting geometry, walls that pulsed, floors that moved like breathing diaphragms. The smell was worse than rot. It was memory gone sour, like the scent of an old photograph burned and inhaled. Marissa dropped to one knee. The nausea hit her like a wave. A hand touched her shoulder. It was Tyler, but not the one she remembered. His face was stretched too long. His eyes were dark holes filled with swirling static. His jaw moved in rhythmic clicks as if unhinged and loose. And yet, he smiled. Almost gently. "I told you I'd always come back," he said. His voice came from inside her head. She tried to pull away but found her body locked in place. Caleb stepped between them and placed one hand on each of their chests. "This is the offering," he said. The red light intensified. The altar began to vibrate, and the air filled with whispers. They weren't in English, they weren't even language. They were instructions. A ritual begun in blood, continued through grief, and sealed in birth. Marisa felt something uncoil inside her, something that hadn't been hers for months, maybe longer. "I don't want this," she gasped, forcing her voice through the pressure on her throat. "But you already chose it," Caleb said without looking at her. When you didn't leave," he replied. Behind them, the chamber rippled, walls folded in on themselves. The altar cracked. A figure stepped out from the corridor of red. It was not a god. It was not a demon. It was something that had once been both, and had grown tired of pretending to be either. And it was smiling. The creature that emerged from the corridor was tall, taller than any human Marissa had seen, and impossibly thin, with a frame like melted ivory stretched over broken scaffolding. Its skin shimmered like oil, reflecting memories more than light. And where a face should have been, there was only a deep cavity swirling with static and fragments of reflected images. Her face, Caleb's face, the nursery, the burning crib, the twisted smile of Tyler. It tilted its head as if curious, then took one step forward. The chamber shuddered. Marissa tried to scream, but her throat clenched tight. The pressure in her skull built to a terrible crescendo, like an air raid siren just beneath her skin. The altar cracked further, oozing black liquid that hissed when it touched the stone. It wasn't blood. It was something colder, older. A contract made flesh. The creature raised one long arm and pointed a hand of 5 finger bones toward Caleb. "He is the key. it said, but not aloud. The voice came from inside her, as if her own mind had been hollowed out to serve as its speaker. "He is the door." Caleb turned to Marissa. "It's okay, Mom. You can let go now." "No," she gasped, staggering to her feet. "You're just a boy. My boy." He blinked slowly. "I was. But I've been more for a long time." Behind him, the corridor of red light writhed, expanding with every passing second. She could see forms in the distance now, hundreds of them, maybe more, shifting in rhythm, arms raised, mouths open in silent chant. Some were malformed. Others looked human, too human, as if someone had worn a memory like clothing and forgotten how to take it off. "You weren't supposed to see this," Caleb said gently. "Most parents don't, but you came too close. That's why you remembered the ultrasound. That's why Tyler had to be taken." The name hit her like a punch. "Tyler, what did you do to him?" "He tried to stop the ritual," Caleb said, "but he never really understood it. He just thought I was sick, that I was having nightmares." "You were." "Were I?" he whispered, head cocking. "Or were those dreams just the only part of me trying to warn you?" Marissa's legs buckled. She collapsed to her knees. The creature stepped closer, looming above her like a cathedral made of bone and regret. It reached one hand toward her face. "You have carried the vessel," it whispered. "You have fulfilled the rite. You may now exit." "No," Marissa said. "I won't leave him. I won't leave either of them." "There is no them," the voice replied. "There is only what you birthed. You made a bridge. You made a key. You made an invitation." From behind, a new light emerged, a soft gold that pulsed like candlelight through fog. It came from the opposite side of the chamber, another passage. She hadn't noticed it before, and someone was standing at its mouth. Tyler, or the remnant of him. His face was scarred, his right eye missing, his limbs twitching slightly with unnatural rhythm, but it was him, and he was alive. "Marissa," he rasped, voice cracked from disuse or suffering she couldn't imagine. "You can't finish it. If you do, the thing inside him won't just open the gate. It will stay open." She tried to run to him, but the creature blocked her path. "No more resistance," it said, but Tyler stepped into the light fully, and the entity flinched. "Symbols," he said quickly, holding up something. "A charm made from bones and string and nails. The old ones. I learned them. From Daniel Rose's notes. From what he left behind." He tossed the charm into the air. The creature hissed and recoiled, retreating into the corridor of red light. The chamber howled. Walls twisted, shrieked, and cracked. The altar collapsed. Caleb let out a cry, not of pain but of rage. "You're ruining it!" he shouted. "But they promised me I was going to become." He didn't finish. Marissa lunged for him, arms wrapping around his small body, trying to hold him like a mother, just a mother. Even as his skin grew hotter and hotter, steam rose from his back. His veins glowed faintly beneath the surface. And behind them, the corridor began to collapse, swallowing itself in spirals of bone and fire. "You have to choose," Tyler shouted. "The bond is breaking, but if he stays here, he'll be taken." "Taken by what?" "By them. By the ones that made this ritual before language, before us." She looked down at Caleb. He looked back up at her. For the first time in years, he looked like just a boy. "I'm tired, Mom," he whispered. "But I don't want to go. Not alone." She looked at Tyler, looked at the creature, now roaring from behind the collapsing corridor. The golden light flickered as stone rained down from above. She had only seconds. Marissa took a breath, and she ran. Holding Caleb in her arms, she sprinted toward the light, toward Tyler, toward something like salvation. But as she passed the altar's remains, something grabbed her ankle. A hand, white, twisted, and very much alive. She screamed and fell. Caleb slipped from her arms. He vanished into the light, and Marissa was dragged backward into the collapsing chamber. The creature was no longer screaming. It was laughing. And as the darkness swallowed her whole, she heard a voice, not hers, not Caleb's, not even Tyler's chorus, and it said, "Now that the vessel is empty, we'll make room for another." Time fractured the moment she hit the stone floor. Marissa's breath left her in a violent gasp as her body crumpled beside the shattered altar. For a second, maybe less, all she could feel was the sharp burn of her lungs and the dull roar in her ears. Then came the memories, rushing in like floodwater. Caleb's face disappearing into the light, Tyler's scarred hand reaching out, the inhuman grip that had pulled her down. And behind all of it, that laughter. Not human. Never human. The world around her had gone wrong again. The chamber no longer throbbed with light or fire. It was quiet, still. As if it had aged 1,000 years in a blink, dust hung thick in the air. The altar was no longer cracked but reduced to rubble. Black ichor had dried into flaking stains across the stone. The symbols on the walls, once shifting with unseen breath, were now static, faded, dead. Marissa pushed herself up slowly, joints aching, mind fraying at the edges. Where was she? Had she escaped? Or worse, had she been left behind? A sound snapped her attention sideways, the scrape of something across the far wall. She squinted through the haze. There was no corridor anymore, no glowing gate, just a cold slab of stone, partially collapsed. Her mind clawed through images, trying to find order, trying to rebuild the sequence. Caleb had been pulled forward into the light. She had been pulled back. So what had become of the boy? Her boy. Her hands trembled as she tried to stand fully. The air here felt heavier, denser, and somewhere deep in her bones she could feel it pressing inward. Not like gravity, but like the slow crush of time itself, waiting to collapse her into something less than memory. She took a step forward and froze. The walls were breathing again. But it wasn't light they exhaled this time. It was ash. Gray, soft flakes falling from cracks above, drifting slowly down like snow made of forgotten names. Her skin itched as it touched her. Then came the whisper. Not loud, not angry, just patient. Repeat the rite. She staggered back, spine pressing to the cold wall behind her. "No, I did what you wanted," she murmured. "I brought him. He went. That should be enough." The whisper again, now closer, now inside. "He was the vessel, but you are the door." A dry wheezing sound came from the far side of the rubble. It took her a moment to realize it was a voice. Tyler, still alive? Somehow? She scrambled across the broken floor, knees tearing on jagged stone, and clawed away at the loose slabs with both hands until a thin opening emerged. Through it, she saw an eye, bloodshot, unfocused. "Tyler!" she cried. The eye blinked, slowly, then centered on her. "You came back," he croaked. "You're trapped. Hold on. No!" His voice cracked. "Don't move the stones. It's holding them back. You pull it away and they'll finish what they started." "Caleb, gone," he whispered. "Or changed. Or both. I don't know." Her heart lurched. "But I saw him. He wasn't ready. He didn't want this." "No one ever does," Tyler said. "That's how the rites work. They prey on uncertainty, on grief, on desperation. The more you resist, the more you feed it. Your love for him, that was the offering. Not his blood, yours." Carissa collapsed back, stunned. It wasn't the first time she'd felt as though everything was twisted, but this time it fit. Her dreams, the flickering memories, her pregnancy, the sense, all those years ago, that something had entered her not just physically but cosmically, a pact unspoken, a womb offered. "What do they want?" she asked. "What are they?" Tyler didn't answer. Instead, the whisper returned. "You remember. Say it." A sudden pressure filled her chest. Her vision doubled. She saw herself, not as she was, but as she had been, lying on the table during her emergency C-section, Caleb not crying when he was pulled from her. The doctors whispering, the faint static crackling from the heart monitor. The moment she saw the smile on the surgeon's face, like he was welcoming something back, not delivering someone new. That had been the moment it entered her, not just the boy, but the bond. And she had never broken it. She had only delayed its consequences. "Say the words," the voice urged. She began to sob. "No." Behind her, the stone wall groaned. Cracks formed, bleeding red light from behind. Tyler shouted, "Don't answer it! It's not a voice! It's a root! Once it takes hold again." A sudden howl split the chamber. Not the creature, not Caleb. This was something else. Older, hungrier, and it was close. The air thickened. The ash turned black. The whispers became screams, layered voices from 1,000 mouths. Overlapping in pain and prophecy, she pressed her hands to her ears. But the sounds came from her own chest, her own mind, echoing in her blood. Then, silence. Total, as if time held its breath. In the distance, a bell rang. One chime, then two, then three. She knew that sound. She'd heard it once before. In the hospital, right after Caleb was born. The moment the power flickered and all the machines had gone dead for exactly 13 seconds. The nurse said it was a power surge. But she had heard the chimes then, too. She turned toward the source. A tunnel had opened behind the collapsed altar, slick with fluid and crawling with impossible symbols. It hadn't been there before, or maybe it always had. Just waiting. The whispers returned, now shaped like her son's voice. "You can still find me, Mom, but only if you come alone." She didn't think. She just moved. Marissa stepped into the tunnel, and behind her the chamber sealed. The light vanished, and everything else did too. The tunnel was alive. Marissa didn't walk through it so much as drift, pulled by a pulse older than thought. The walls were not made of stone or earth, but something darker, fleshy, organic, and impossibly cold. Symbols writhed along the surface like worms beneath skin, and the ground shifted beneath her feet, subtly changing direction with each step. No light, yet she saw. No sound, yet she heard whispers just beneath comprehension, words shaped like hunger, like grief. "He's here." That voice again, Caleb's, or what remained of him. Each time she blinked, she saw flashes. A boy's silhouette suspended in amber light, veins like roots stretching across his skin, eyes no longer human, wide and black like oil spilled across glass. And always, that half smile. It had once been hers. He used to smile like that after nightmares, when she sat on the edge of his bed and promised him the monsters weren't real. Now she wasn't so sure. The tunnel opened into a chamber too vast to comprehend, a void wrapped in ritual. Pillars shaped like bone held up nothing. At its center, a floating spire pulsed slowly with veins of red light, and suspended above it, Caleb. He hung in the air, limbs splayed as if crucified, but no ropes held him. Just will. His skin shimmered with runes, pulsing in rhythm with the spire. And below him, a circle etched into the floor. Lines burned into the surface with more than fire, blood, bone, memory. The truth landed before she could brace for it. He wasn't being held, he was holding it. Whatever it was. Something vast, something older than the world, something bound inside him. She stepped forward, heart pounding. "Caleb," she whispered. His head tilted slightly, not toward her, through her, as if listening to something that stood just behind her shoulder, a presence she dared not turn to see. Then, slowly, his lips moved. "You shouldn't have come." Tears stung her eyes. "I had to. I couldn't leave you like that." "You didn't leave me," he said flatly. "You brought me." The words hit like ice. "No, I was trying to protect you. From Tyler. From whatever this was. I didn't know, but you felt it, he interrupted. Even then, before I was born, when the doctors pulled me out and the machines stopped humming, you knew something came with me, inside me. Marissa shook her head. You're my son. I was, he said. Now I'm more. He lifted a hand and the circle on the ground responded. Runes flared to life, crawling across the floor toward her feet. A warning, or a boundary. She stepped back instinctively. You still have a choice, he said, but it won't save you. It'll only change what survives. What are you talking about? She said, voice breaking. Sacrifice, he said. A second voice joined his, female, familiar. She turned and saw her, Dr. Serena Langley, but not as she remembered her. Not the cold-faced woman in a lab coat from Caleb's infant records. This version wore robes woven from flesh and shadow, her face split by an unnatural grin. Her eyes shimmered with knowledge and nothingness. You should be proud, Marissa, she said. You raised the vessel well. His mind stayed intact longer than we expected. That means the fusion was near perfect. What is this? Serena moved closer, circling her like a vulture. We waited centuries for the right lineage, the right womb. You, dear Marissa, are the daughter of the 13th gatekeeper. Caleb was never yours to keep, only yours to deliver. Marissa backed away. You're insane. Maybe, Serena whispered, but madness opens the correct doors. She snapped her fingers. The spire cracked. A scream unlike anything human erupted from within the circle. The ground split down the middle, revealing a chasm filled with shifting eyes and clawed limbs, trapped in slow, agonizing motion. Marissa felt her knees buckle. She was looking into something that had never been meant to be seen, something that remembered before light, before names. Serena's voice grew distant, ritualistic. The gate opens. The vessel weakens. The mother must choose. What choice? Marissa gasped. Join him or replace him? The choice fractured her. To ascend with her son? Become one with him in some unholy fusion of blood and eternity? Or offer herself as a final barrier, resealing the gate with her flesh, her soul, her scream? She looked at Caleb. He said nothing. But his eyes, there was still a boy in them, a fragment, a flicker. Then she knew. She stepped into the circle. Serena's smile faded. No, that's not how it was meant to, but it was too late. Marissa spoke the words. Not words she remembered learning, but ones buried in blood, carved in her womb, inherited from lineages long extinguished. Words of closure, of containment. The void answered. The chasm began to close. The limbs screamed and writhed as the light dimmed. The runes burned red hot. Caleb's body shuddered violently. He screamed, "Mom, what are you?" But she reached up and touched his chest and whispered, "Come back." His body convulsed and then fell into her arms. The chamber exploded with silence. The spire imploded. Serena shrieked and disappeared into smoke. And Marissa collapsed, her son cradled against her chest, breathing, alive, human. They lay there for a moment. Then Caleb stirred. "I saw it," he whispered, "all of it. I know. I think it's still out there." Marissa didn't respond, because in the dark, beyond the ruin of the spire, something moved. Not a creature, a copy of her. Smiling, waiting, and its eyes, those weren't hers anymore. They belonged to something else entirely. Thank you for joining me on this journey into the darkness. If you've made it this far, you've braved the shadows, the whispers, and the ancient truths buried beneath our reality. This story was never just about monsters or curses. It was about a mother's love, the weight of choice, and the price we pay to protect the ones we hold dear. To those who listened with open minds and quiet hearts, thank you. If the story stayed with you, if certain images refused to leave, if some part of you now questions what's real and what waits in the dark corners of the world, then maybe, just maybe, you heard what was meant to be heard. Please consider leaving a like, sharing with others who enjoy a good scare, and subscribing for more stories that blur the line between nightmare and reality. And remember, some doors should never be opened, but if you do open them, make sure you know who or what is standing behind you. Until next time, sleep light.